Hey y'all, welcome back to the Bergerac channel. I'm Jim, your humble host. Today we're going to go over bullet holes in wood. But that's all you're going to see unless you stay watching. Let's get started. Alright, well today we have some wood that I've had for a while, and I kept it because it was relatively interesting. If you notice, I have some resawn maple here. We resawed it through the bandsaw, and come to find out inside had a bullet in there. Now, who knows how that got in there? I think as long as I've had these pieces, you know, we've come up with every kind of different scenario that did it. On this piece, we have a clean entry hole. This got a little broken up. This piece has a little bit of lead in it. This piece, you can see the lead and the brass, and this is just the tip of the bullet left in this one. So my idea is to make a picture story out of the bullet hole. Now you can see the mineral deposit, how it gained around the stain around each bullet. You could take this piece, cut it out, seal it, put some finish on it, make everything just perfect. All right, before I could get ready to start cutting my pieces up, we had to glue some of this oak veneer with a wood backer onto the back of part number 1 in order to make it a little thicker, because it ended up coming through the resaw a little small. So I'm going to get that out of the clamps and we'll check it out and see how thick it is. Okay, just a little bit of a mess to clean up here, but let's see how the measurements came out. Okay, 122 thousandths right there, and then one of these pieces, 98 thousandths. So we can take a little bit off from that, but we're closer than we were. So this was quite a bit thinner, because this material is 35 thousandths, and I brought it up a little bit. So we're approximately 25 thousandths smaller on this one. So this material helped make it a little closer. As you can see, the glue didn't dry, even though this has been sitting up for a while, but dried on the backside. But you know, as always, you have exposed glue. We'll clean that up. So a lot of people are probably going, Jim, you use acrylic for everything now. Here's kind of the problem with holding on to acrylic for a long period of time. It's very hard to get the paper off. You might as well use it before the paper is completely destroyed. There is one very good reason, which I think you're going to agree. When I use the acrylic as a router template, which I'm going to change the blade in the table saw, put the acrylic blade in, cut this out to the size that I want to be, then I'll have the fun process of peeling all this nasty paper off. Once it's cleared off, it'll give me an exact visual through this piece to see exactly what I'm going to be cutting. I will put the acrylic on top with some double-sided tape, run the top bearing bit all the way around it, and when the bit's done trimming it, it'll be exactly what I want, because I can see through the acrylic as how it's going to look before I cut it. Now, I'm going to set our fence to 3.5. We want our acrylic to be 3 1/4. I have the acrylic blade installed in there. A little trick I've learned when cutting acrylic: come up just a little higher than the acrylic and have yourself a board that you can put on top of it. This is just a piece of MDF. What this will allow me to do is keep the acrylic pressed down, because acrylic has a tendency to want to lift and do all kinds of funny stuff when running it through the table saw. So if you can keep direct pressure, lock your blade so that you know it's not going to come up or down, you can basically cut right through it blind. Let's get her started. Move it over to 3 1/4, put the clean side back against the fence. And in order to keep my board in there, I'm going to need to run this other one away from it. Now, before you all send me a whole bunch of crap telling me how much I'm not doing it right and it's dangerous to have your hand over the top of the blade when it's going through, I've already locked the blade in place. It's not going to come up through the plywood. Working with woodworking tools is inherently dangerous. Do everything at your own risk. If you want your acrylic to be all flapping in the wind and give you a whole bunch of hard time, do it however you want to do it. This is the way I do it. 2 nice clean square cuts. Got to trim the end square. We'll get that done and we'll start trimming out the artwork. Cool, so we got the acrylic, and that'll make my little router template. Now, being in touch with my feminine side, I decided to change things. We originally were going to start with this small hole on one side, and I thought it better as a picture. We'll show the entry hole into the wood, and we'll work our way down to where the bullet landed. So that's why we're completely reverse of what I had in before, because feminine side kicking in and changing my mind, that whole thing. At this point, all we really need to do is double-sided tape the acrylic on top like that and run it through the router table. But before I do that, you notice there's a lot more maple over here. So I would like to take some of that maple off and make the picture a little bit tighter. So I've just taken a simple piece of teak and I'm going to run just a little mark on the one side where I want to take a minimum amount off. The edge of this board is rough, so as you can see, I'm not being real critical about where I put this on. It's just going to be like a relatively close mark for each adhesion of the acrylic on there. It really doesn't matter. What we need is two parallel sides. The acrylic's going to give us that. It's going to give us the top and bottom. It's going to give us the length. But when we go to glue it up on our substrate underneath, we may end up trimming the bottom and the top and the edges back in a little bit. But we need parallel edges for our glue joints. And if the picture of each piece of wood is close to the same size, that's going to make the overall piece of art look a little nicer. So there. Those are all marked. Now I'm going to lay one edge of the acrylic down on those marks accordingly. So it'll be like that. I'll make sure that I made one reference line. What I did is I lined up the entry of the bullet all the way across, simply taking the square and going, okay, where do they all line up at? So basically the center of the thing, so that the hole carries across when it's all glued together. Then at that point, I struck a line going across the bottom of all of these. Now when I cut them and didn't exactly have that perfect, I got a little bit of a line showing here, a little bit more on this one, so getting it all level. Now the bottom edge of the acrylic will go on that line, and it will go on these two lines that I made. Then it's just going to trim just a little bit off from both ends, and of course all the way down the sides. So what I noticed is when we put this one on the little 1/4 inch offset line I have, look at when my mineral deposits is all the way over on the edge on that one. What we want to do is move it over, and this is what the acrylic does for you when you're doing something like this. It kind of gives you your picture before you actually mill it. So I think we want to set it over like that to center it up a little bit, and that'll work good right there. So now I can make some new lines. Now if I was just using a solid substrate to mill against, I would have never seen that. Then as I go down and I check my picture with all the rest of them, with the marks, I can easily see where that picture lays. So even this one could be adjusted a little bit more to the center, and that'll give me a little bit better picture. Now as we go down and check them, okay, the picture on that one's pretty nice, but I think I'll move it over just 1/8 inch. So the little 1/4 inch line was a good reference point to get me started from. As we come down to this is what this side is actually a lot closer to where, see, that one's fine, this one's perfect, and this one's perfect. It fits on there. It's really good. Might have been one of these other ones that I actually measured from for the, it might have been like this one I was setting up the original perimeter, but when I got to this side it wasn't right. This is a really nice little trick if you're doing something like this, to be able to see what you're going to get before you finish it. Okay, so now I'll start with this one. We'll double-sided tape it, the acrylic down to it, run it through the router, just continue down through all the pieces and it will be cool. Okay, so because this wood's a little rough, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down one layer of double-sided tape. This is like a template double-sided tape. It's real thin, so I'm going to add a level to it. Adding one more, it'll perhaps stick a little bit better to the rough material. Okay, now we'll use our lines that we made. Got to keep it straight on the bottom one. That looks good right there. Just press it down real securely. Doesn't appear to have any issues with moving. So we're ready to run it on the router table now. Got the first piece glued on. Pull the clamps off from that, see how it looks. What I'm doing is I'm putting this on 1/4 inch Baltic plywood. That'll keep it nice and stable. I'm using yellow PVA glue. That came out nice. Put the next one right up to it, just like that. 5 more times. All right, well, it's the following day. Put the other 5 pieces in. This acrylic's probably becoming familiar to some of you. We basically use that to lay the even pressure over the whole piece and put some weights up here to actually stop from lifting. So pull these clamps off, and then we can get the rest of the weights off. We won't have to worry about it prying the edge up. We'll take a look at our artwork. All right, now the reason, instead of just doing this up blind, the reason I use the heavy piece of acrylic, number one, the glue won't stick to it. Number two, you can kind of see down through and see if everything's together the way you want it to be. And then when I was pressing the seams in, gave me the indication of how tight to put the clamps. So let's pull that off. The nice thing about acrylic is the glue doesn't stick to it. So we get that kind of where we want it. Now we'll run it through the thickness sander. All right, let's start on that process. All right, well, I think these came out pretty cool. We had lead, a little bit of brass, a little bit of lead, now a little bit more lead in there. Obviously, so this piece being a bigger mineral deposit, everything's sanded up, it looks pretty nice. But this being a larger mineral deposit was the entry of where the bullet went in, but it made a nice round hole. Then this hole got torn out, left a little bit of lead in there when it went in. The tree kind of grew around it. A little bit more lead and brass. The bulk of the bullet was in this part of the tree. So that's why we got the larger amounts of deposit. So you can see this would have been a really nice piece of maple if it hadn't had this mess up in it, because it is a real pretty. I got all the cathedrals lined up here. It looks really nice. Next thing to do is square it up so we can get the frame made, and then start putting the finish on it. We're going to end up trimming the bottom off on this line, and then we'll come up on the top, squaring off the other side. We'll trim it right about there. And then once that's done, we can make sure this dimension's the same for the matting that's going to go around the whole piece. I think we're going to end up doing black and then white matting with a chrome frame. So that's square the way we want it. Give it a sand with some 400 grit, a little bit of West System on there, seal it up real nice, and we'll be ready for top coat. Beautiful. All right, so we got our little sticker on there. Time for another coat of special hardener. Try to get 4 coats of this on today. Give it a sand and clear it tomorrow with some Allcraft. I had a question from somebody. They used a heat gun to cure the epoxy. Sent me a comment and was asking me about that. Never found it was a good idea. I've used a butane torch before, which seems to work well if you run it over it. In my experience, the best thing to use is just some denatured alcohol in a little spray bottle in an actual spray gun, and just mist over the surface. I happen to have some bubble buster here, which you can purchase as well. I'm basically just trying to use it up. This is such a small piece, I'm not going to bring a spray gun down to do it, but I'll demonstrate the same way that you should use your spray gun. So you can see it's already filled in real nice. Okay, see how I'm just misting over that? That's it. See? Falls down in and breaks the bubbles up. Yeah, I like it. It's good. All right, so I put a piece of mica on the back of the panel. It's silver, it's gonna match the frame. That saves me from having to seal the wood up on the back. This is on there real nice, so we're just gonna trim it out right now. So beautiful. There's the piece all ready for clear now. So I just run some tape and some paper on the back to keep the mica from getting coated. Give it a little sand, make sure it's clean. We'll shoot it and we'll be ready for the frame. All right, well now it's time for the finale. I'm gonna put this inside the frame. So the clear came out on it really nice. I run a couple of layers of carbon fiber down the sides. The maple was slightly higher. So I put carbon fiber on the sides. When I flip it over, you'll see why I use black carbon fiber. But you, my loyal followers, are the only ones that are ever going to see this carbon fiber. So let's flip it over, put it in the frame. Real nice like that. Now I want it to be centered in the frame. So I've cut a couple of ebony strips that we're going to put down each side. Hold it nice in the frame. And give a little tap on them to get them in. Yeah, no, they fit a little too good. Then we'll just put this strip on this side, same way. The frame company gave me this style little clip. So what you do is you drive that into the side of the frame. And because I don't have the right tool for it, I made up something simple, which you can do as well. It's just a block of aluminum with a piece of tape on the back of it so it doesn't scratch the Formica or the back of the pitcher, whatever it would be. You know what a redneck toolbox is, right? It's a roll of duct tape. I have a couple rolls. I think that'll do it. Are you ready to see what it looks like? Not bad. This is a non-glare glass, white matting, black, and you can see the carbon fiber doesn't show through. And remember, you're the only one that ever saw that carbon fiber. All right, well, we hope you enjoyed this video. We want you to all make something cool. Send me a thumbs up. Please subscribe. Keep our channel growing. Give us your comments, and we'll talk at you all soon.